and welcome back to another episode of Grit and Grace Leadership Talks with myself, Kate Taylor. I'm so excited today because I have an amazing lady that I'm going to share with you all shortly. And she is someone that I have placed into a regional manager role recently at Youth InSearch. And I've also been networking with her since then around her business that she has called SocieteQueenx, where she has leadership and mentoring, coaching there, and a podcast too. So I'm really excited to share Jacinta Wells with you today. So welcome, Jacinta.
Thank you. Hi, it's amazing to be here.
So glad. We always have jokes that we are like twins because we both love sharing really positive affirmations. We're always out there online and we all kind of think on the same page. So it's been such a delight to work with you to secure the role that you're in now with Youth InSearch, and also to see all the stuff you're doing online. So yeah, it's been great to talk with you today. So thank you.
No, thank you. And it's been absolutely amazing. And look, it's an absolute pleasure to connect with you, because I think from the first moment that we ever spoke on the phone or connected online, it was just almost kismet that we came together and had a conversation, because every conversation turned out from 10 minutes and goes on for could probably go on for 10 hours, I reckon.
I know, we just clicked.
Too long.
Yeah, it's so nice. And obviously we've never got to meet because you're in Victoria and I'm in New South Wales, but I feel like we know each other quite well.
I know. I feel like we have already met with the amount of contact that we have and everything that we've done together. But no, it's an absolute pleasure, and thanks for having me online today.
Oh, thank you for joining us. And yeah, I just really wanted everyone to meet you and kind of hear about yourself and your journey, because a lot of people, I've interviewed a few people now who have gone out and done private practice or their own businesses for my podcast. But what I really also wanted to showcase was what it requires to have grit and grace in leadership when you work for someone in an executive role in a not-for-profit. So I really like the fact that we could kind of come together and talk a bit about that, because I feel like a lot of people, some people, their path is to go out on their own, but others it's to actually work their way up in leadership in another brand. So I thought it'd be really good to showcase that as well today. So can you, obviously there's a lot of things you have to do to be successful in your day and to feel like you're kicking goals and can keep doing the work you're doing as a busy working mum. So could you give me a bit of an idea of the things you do on your day mornings to set yourself up for success?
Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of the things that I've learned over the years have been to ensure that you do actually set yourself up for the day from not just a professional perspective, but also a personal perspective too. And one of the things that I do every morning, first thing in the morning, is I will read through my brain dump that I've had the day before. So generally before I go to bed to end my day. Yep. Okay. So I put together a brain dump of everything that I know is in my head that I need to get out of it before I go to bed. So
good idea.
I know, because otherwise I'd never sleep, right? So to reread my brain dump and actually compartmentalize what it is that I need to focus on and what my priorities are for that day. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing is when I sit down at my computer of the morning, it's literally scheduling time to take half an hour, 45 minutes of my first part of my morning to catch up on the day events, so the daily events. So that might be catch up on the news. It might be, catch up on potentially a podcast that I've missed that I've been following along. Because what it actually does is it doesn't just set the tone for my professional day, but it sets the tone for myself personally, mindset-wise and focus-wise.
Yeah, I love that, because I found about finding those stolen moments in your routine where you could listen to something and learn. So in the mornings when I'm getting ready, I'll often put on a podcast while I'm doing my hair and makeup, getting dressed for the day, or after I've dropped my daughter to school, I have about a 15-minute bus ride, not very long, but I'll quickly pop in their headphones and just start listening to half a podcast, because I'm like, at least it's got something into me for the day. And I feel a lot more inspired by the time I get to the office, because I've kind of put all that into my well-being, into my psyche for the day. So yeah, I can appreciate that would be really good for you too.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it gives you that, because, you know, I think what we tend to do as leaders on a day-to-day basis is we're constantly putting everyone first, right?
Exactly.
So we're constantly checking in on our staff, on our clients, our customers, whoever your cohort may be. And I think that having those few moments just to be able to plug into yourself, whether it even just be your 15-minute bus ride that you've got, you don't actually know how much nourishment you actually provide yourself by just that 15 minutes. It's absolutely incredible.
Like I notice it when I haven't done it and I kind of come in a bit more clouded, but I think having those moments, even on your way home at night, it's like just putting in something, transitioning, either it's a song or something that would help you kind of go between work and home mode, because I find sometimes we can be so distracted with everything going on in our day that when we pick up our kids, we're kind of like half on the phone, half on messages, trying to reply to people while I pick up my daughter from after school care. And I sometimes feel like she doesn't get the best of me, right? Because I'm still doing a million things. So that kind of transition, just listening to a song or something that kind of helps you in your brain to go, okay, this is off time now. Like,
absolutely.
Let's get back into home life, you know? And so, yeah, it is a juggle, but it's looking at those stolen moments, I think, isn't it, to try and set you up for your day.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, I love that. And can you tell us a bit about your career path? Because you've done a few different things and worked your way up to get to the job you've got now as the manager, for Victoria. Like, how have you done it?
Look, I look back on my career and go that I've been really fortunate to land some of the roles that I have over the time. And, you know, I started off way back. I did my my double degree at uni, thought I wanted to go into generalist human resources, and got my first job out of uni as a human resource manager, which was absolutely huge for me at the time. I worked for actually a resort in hospitality as their HRM, and it was an amazing opportunity. It really taught me the whole, opportunity to hit the ground running, and it was a really, really good learning curve. I had some great mentors at that time, and from there, I really unpacked the fact that I wanted to specialize in what I was doing. So hence got me into the recruitment industry. So, a fellow alumni of the recruitment industry. I
think that's also why we connected, right?
I think so. And probably the reason that the talking happens, but got into the recruitment game. So that was privately, and I was doing, a lot of corporate recruitment. So, big kind of recruitment drives at that time. And really found that my passion through that came from, I was sat on the other side of the table trying to, place a lot of these individuals into roles, and found that I spent the majority of my time, coaching and mentoring them into certain aspects of their life. So, it might be, how are you going to juggle this role? How are you going to be able to perform this role and be a good, good parent, or, be efficient in what you're doing? Is this actually going to be something you can be doing? So I naturally found that, the whole rhythm and cadence of that was coaching and mentoring, right? So when I got to that point, I went, this is something that I really think I'm good at. I think I'm, actually half decent at this. So I'm gonna see what I can do. All right. So I jumped into then doing a lot of rehab consulting. So I was doing consulting for individuals who found themselves, unfortunately, having suffered an injury, and coaching them through the emotional and mental health struggles of what it's like when you come through, having an injury and a mental health concern. So going through that process was, again, really much all about, how you can actually develop an individual to realize and come to the realization of what it is that they actually already know in themselves.
Yeah.
So I went through that process, and when I got the opportunity to finally step into a leadership capacity with one of my first leadership roles is where I really knew I found my niche, and that was being able to coach and mentor the workflow for staff. So a lot of the time there's so many different, anomalies that you need to triage as a leader a lot of the time. And my whole philosophy, if you like, is really about how you can get the best out of the good people that you've got, not just necessarily going, this person's not good enough to do this role, I'm going to go and find something better, because that's generally never, ever going to happen. So it was all about, how do I get the best out of the people that I've got? And that's ultimately where it led me to, working in the community services and social services sector. And when I went through a process of, gaining a mentor myself, was then going, this is actually something that I could go on and, and really talk about. So sitting down and having conversations, with other inspiring individuals, like yourself, loads of other, managers and leaders in the industry, to go, do you know what, we need to be doing more for not just females, but males as well, because there's a lot of males that now tend to get lost, in the leadership industry, because there are a lot of emerging leaders coming through.
That's true.
But the balance is starting to even out now. We sort of seem to find that, it was all very much a male-dominated kind of role in the past, was the leadership and the management, where we're starting to see that even out a real lot now, with, females obviously coming through as emerging leaders. So the reason I launched, the Society Queen, was when I was made redundant, and I wanted to keep, those muscles toned, during my downtime, because, I can't stop. I can't sit still most of my time. So, so it was a good outlet for me to still continue on that coaching practice, and, impart some of the leadership knowledge I think I've developed over the time.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And then also getting into community services a bit more, doing the role that you're doing with Youth InSearch, vulnerable youth, as well, as obviously brings in another aspect to what you can do. So that's obviously been I guess for people like you who've gone in a different way, not like social worker working their way up, but work their way up to senior management roles. How would you, what advice would you give to someone that's maybe wanting to try a different area, or they want to get into community services and they're in another area at the moment? What would be the way that you'd recommend people to get into it, to get their foot in the door? What type of roles, or where would you look? What do you say?
Look, I think that, the biggest thing is don't kind of pigeonhole yourself. And, one of the things that, I sort of, you hear the phrase people sort of say all the time, I'm sort of, I'm stuck in it now. I've fallen into it. I fell into it. And I think the biggest thing. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Or I'm a glutton for punishment, that sort of thing, because we tend to use that phrase because we regurgitate through the system, right? So, but I think that the thing is that don't be afraid to experiment with different industries and, different skill sets. Don't be afraid to, expose a level of vulnerability in yourself and in your skill sets, because, the moment that you expose that vulnerability is potentially when you're beginning to actually unlock, almost a secret power, if you like, being able to really sort of unlock. And that's what I find with, with leaders, and even in my role now, working with Youth InSearch, being sort of a manager across Victoria, is unlocking the potential in those individuals that I work with, and not just the staff, but, the young people that you come across. Once someone has the ability to show that level of vulnerability, it's not a weakness. It's not a sign of weakness.
No.
It's a sign that there's a potential to grow. And that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yes. And it's about getting out of your comfort zone, isn't it, to grow? And I think so many people get stuck in a certain path or a career because they think that's what they've always done. and actually just having that confidence and boldness of like, yeah, but I've learnt so many skills that I can bring across to this role, and this is why. It's that looking for those transferable skills, managing staff, dealing with targets, KPIs, all that stuff is what you have to deal with in management roles, even in not-for-profit. So, it's like looking at what transferable skills you have to be able to bring to the table for a potential employer so that they can see, actually, yes, this does cross over, and how you can make that work. I think articulating that really well is important, isn't it, at that interview, and that kind of submitting your application into roles, things like that, and connecting with people in the industry that you want to work in, like on LinkedIn and stuff. I think it's also important to start networking, seeing what's around, and the types of people that are in that field, and see if they'll have a chat with you, because you never know, they might have a virtual coffee with you, and just you can pick their brains and just be like, hey, I really want to do what you're doing one day. How would I get there? And what steps would you recommend? And even if it takes 5 or 10 years, it's fine, because you're on a path, right, that you could do that.
Right. That's right. And, I think the thing is that it's not the, there's certain milestones that you're always going to get to in your career. And, like I had a female ex-colleague of mine reach out to me via LinkedIn over the weekend. And, she's an area manager for another organization at the moment. And while she loves what she's doing, she wants to try getting into, to the youth sector, right? Yeah. So she reached out to me and said, do you know what? Can you just give me a bit of an idea? What would I need to do, and who would I need to speak to? Because at the end of the day, it's trying to pull the resources that you need in the room at that time. So, and you and I have had similar conversations, Kate, I know, along our journey together as coming together now, is that, we've had similar conversations about who do I actually need in the room to be able to help me with this. And, it doesn't matter if you've got, 50 contributors to that. If each one of those people brings one thing, then you've got 50 new ideas that's going to land you down, potentially to actually land what it is that you want. So, it's don't ever be afraid to open yourself up to showing that level of vulnerability and going, do you know what? I actually need some guidance and direction on what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. I think, especially if you're someone who's, really good at, like I'm someone that's networked a lot over the years in running a business for 10 years. And, there's certain people in the recruitment industry, for example, that I know I can go to if I'm having trouble with something or a challenge. And I know that, like, we may not have talked for a year or two, but they would pick up the phone to me and help me, and even through different challenges recently, I've been able to connect with a few veterans in the industry, and they've just been so supportive and like just giving me their time and their advice. And, it's just meant so much to me, because obviously they've gone through all of that I'm dealing with, plus, times 20, because they've been in the field for like 40 years, so not 10 like me, so it's definitely great to go to kind of people who are more senior than you in the industry you want to work in, and kind of say to them, hey, what would you do in my situation? And this is what I'm thinking of doing. And this is what I'm really passionate about, but I'm not sure how to get there. And also talking to recruiters like myself who are well connected in the sector as well, seeing who I've got in my network or what path you'd recommend. I'm happy to have a chat with you as well. And I know Jacinta would be too, with her side of things with her Society Queen business. So yeah, it's definitely helpful, I think, to have someone that you can kind of go, actually, what is it that I want to do, and how do I get there? So that's really important. And then tell me about, your coaching side of the business that you're doing. What kind of leadership and coaching and mentoring are you doing with people?
So the majority of coaching and mentoring that I do is majority for individuals who want to get into leadership, and how they actually tackle the different expectations and manage the different expectations that come with being a leader. Sometimes there's those individuals who find themselves in a situation where they really probably haven't explored and haven't really gone down that resource and hunter-gathering kind of process to get all of that information to understand whether or not leadership is something they want to get into. Because it's one thing to sort of say, I want to be in a leadership position. I want to get that title, but it's another thing to actually step up to the plate and perform the inherent requirements of what the job actually is. Because as I said, there's so many things that on a day-to-day basis you have to triage. So, it's really trying to, extrapolate the reasons why. Why do you want to get into that? What are the reasons? Okay, what are the reasons for the reasons? And it's all about, people have this knowledge in their head. They already know the answer to the question. And this is the thing, right? And this is the one thing I love about, when I went through this initial coaching process and when I went through ACAP and actually did my official accreditation, as a coach and mentor, was really extrapolating that and pulling out the social, psychological thoughts behind people's reasonings for things. Yeah. And once you actually start to do that, and once people actually start to physically write things down and reasons as to why the whys are there, they come to the answer themselves.
Wow.
We all have that answer inside us. It's kind of, it's all about asking the right questions. So, and when I tackle it no differently, even with my staff, on a day-to-day basis right now, it's sort of like, well, okay, so what are you coming to me with? You're coming to me with this. Okay, so what would you like to ultimately see achieved from this situation? I would like to ultimately see this. Okay, so this is what you're coming with and this is what you want to achieve. Ultimately, it's about connecting the dots in between. So, yes. And it's understanding the role that you need to play in that. So, but I think, the other big thing too is that senior managers, when we get to a senior management or, an executive manager role, which, myself, I've been in before and in now, is it's also looking at the next a lot of emerging leaders and those who are almost kind of understudies and up and comers. So, what is it that you can see when you're out on the field that's important to what we're doing? Because they're the ones that are ultimately going to be able to determine the trajectory of where your leadership's going as an executive. If you're an executive in a business, the majority of the time you don't have, say that level of finger on the pulse of what's actually happening out in the field, but your people out in the field are the ones that do. So
true.
Making those constant calls, making those check-ins and asking the questions of, hey, what's actually happening out there, what's going on, is not about, micromanaging the staff. It's actually trying to fact find for yourself so that your trajectory of business is going in the best way. So I think that to a degree, that's the grit part, that's the holding on part that I think you talk about a lot of the time. It's, it's about not, almost like a dog with a bone, don't kind of let it go.
Yeah. And I think it's like that determination, that resilience, that courage to step out and be brave, that courage and vulnerability as well, like being like, hey guys, I'm also having a rough week, stuff's going on for me, but I'm doing my best to be here for you. And let's just go easy on each other. And that's why I brought in a Monday check-in with my staff around wellbeing and just saying out of 10, how's your mental health this week? 10 being great and 1 being terrible. And then you can start to see a pattern. Like, they don't have to tell you what it is, but you just then see, like, is that normal for them to be a 7, or is that like a bad week for them? You can kind of start to see, and then either yourself or someone in the team, you can ask them to check in on them and check that they're okay. And I'm always encouraging them to do something for their mind, body, and soul as well for the week. So what are you doing for your mind, body, and soul? And I get them to tell me, and we write it down. And that's something that I found. I got the idea while swimming before work one day. In the pool, I had the idea come to me. I was like, how do we, we want people to think of our staff in a holistic way, right? So then I was like, how do we show that to them? And how do we show we care? And it's not just about, the figures and the results and that, but it's about them too. And so that's where I came up with the idea, and it's been great. Some staff are really open to it. Some are like, why are we doing this? But over time, they're starting to get the hang of it because they come from cultures where it wasn't actually talked about. Like, mental health was never something in their culture that they ever valued or thought about it like we do in Australia. So that's been quite a learning curve as well, going, oh, is this foreign to you? And having to have those open conversations. So it's been really interesting. But I think it's important, isn't it, to harness that into it. Yeah.
Without a doubt it is. And I think it's, I think the other thing is it's not just doing the check-in and walking away. It's going, okay, if someone flags with you that, they're a 2 or a 3 or a 4, even a 5 out of 10, is being able to then go, okay, well, what do you think we could do to get you, what could we get you to get you a 6? What do you think could happen? What could change? What could, what could it be? And generally, most of the time, again, I'll come back to the point, they know what it is, but they need to know that someone is there to listen to potentially what that is. And it might be something silly. It might be, do you know what? I haven't taken my dog for a walk in a week and a half because I've been so incredibly busy doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, why don't you have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about, well, instead of doing that, that portion of your role at this time of the day, have you thought about doing it at this time of the day? So then you've got half an hour to take your dog for a walk. So it's helping them sort of problem solve, which will ultimately lead them to be able to do that themselves. And that's what coaching and good leadership's all about.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's I think so often people just need someone to give them a bit of accountability or support, because like we would obviously share as a team what we're doing, and then the next week when we check in, we're like, did you do it? Like, how did it go? And if one of us is having a bad day and I'm really busy with so many things going on, and the girl's like, you committed to going to the personal trainer today, Kate, like he's expecting you, and like I'll be like, oh, I really don't feel like going, and then I'll go and I feel so much better for it. And I'm like, why do we resist what's good for us?
Yeah, exactly. I know. Because I think that the reason that we do that is because it's ultimately we're the ones that are stood there going, you shouldn't be doing that. What are you doing that for? Like, why are you going to the personal? Why are you bothering going to the personal trainer? Because you only went for a week last time and then you stopped and then you took a break for a month. Why are you doing that? So we think that other people are saying these things, or, it's when you go out, you go out there and you'll go out in your bathing suit and you'll jump in the pool, and you'll kind of be going, you shouldn't be wearing that bathing suit. That's not flattering. That's not flattering. Why are you wearing goggles? But in actual fact, it's the person inside yourself. It's that old
inner critic.
Yeah. And there's no one else out there that's worrying about that. They're too worried about the fact that, themselves. They're worrying about how they look in their own goggles, not how you look.
Yeah, exactly.
So, ultimately it comes back to us being our own worst enemies when it comes to that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think we have to think as well around that self-talk is like, is what I'm saying, would I say that to my best friend or my mum or sister? Like, would you, or your own child, like the comments you're making to yourself, like, would you ever dare say that to them? No. So why are you saying it to yourself? Like, and it's just that check-in, I guess, and reminder, like, hey, you're being really self-critical now. Like, just step back a little bit, and you're doing the best you can with what you're dealing with. And I think we have to remind ourselves, to kind of be that grace side of leadership, being kind to ourselves when we're having a rough week or having a tough time, and doing the preventative measures that help us keep going and keep us sustained, like we were saying. And so I guess that would lead me into what wellbeing and mental health strategies do you have in place to help you as a leader in your week? What do you do at the moment?
Yeah, so look, I'm very big on, I've always got if I'm working from home, I've always got my like my little Buddha statues, and I should have bought one, but I've always got my little Buddha statues there, which I will constantly kind of be, playing with, if I'm really needing to contemplate something and I'm writing, maybe an intense document or something like that. And it's almost just like having that something in my hand grounds me. And it's that level of that physical touch. I've always got a set of weights underneath my desk. And I've got a resistance band. Yeah. So I've always got a resistance band under my desk. And, if I'm sat on a webinar, for example, which is not a camera one, it's just an information session or something, I will actually stand up from my desk, and I will actually, use my resistance band, because not only does it help me, exercise my muscles, but it also releases, that feel good hormone in me as well.
Yes.
So then it has that, it has that dopamine effect, I'm very big with my meditation always.
Okay.
So, I will have meditative music going on in the background. I'll have incense burning, there's certain smells as well, for me,
Yeah.
like some people sort of say certain smells, bring them to a place. I think
Yes.
smell is a really, really underrated thing. And, I think having that for me in my environment makes me feel safe, makes me feel grounded and secure. But also having those check-ins each day with my team also brings me a satisfaction in my mindset, because if I know that they're okay, then I'm okay.
Okay.
And I think that's, because I have, people who will do that for me. So I will have people who check in on me.
Yeah.
If I do that checking in on other people, then I know that they're going to go and do that for other people as well. So, I think, they're small things. They probably don't work for everybody, but if they work for me, if they can work for other people, then that's great. But, ultimately everyone's got their own way.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it's so important to, my PT was trying to encourage me with that. He gave me one of those stretch band things, and he was like, because we're sitting down so much and we're slouching, I find that I get really tight in the shoulder blades and the neck. And so he's given me this band to be able to like stretch, because like while I'm on a call or something, just to try and like get myself a bit more active and more that stretching the body, because we get stuck at our desks all day. So that's something that I've started doing as well. And also trying to do walk and talk meetings. So I have 2 days a week where my daughter does gymnastics, and it's not convenient to go drop her off and then go back to the office. So what I do is I have like an hour at 4 to 5 o'clock before it gets dark, and I've been doing my calls for the day, catching up with clients or staff or whoever. And then I'm literally like in the park walking around doing laps. And because I'm just determined, I'm like, today's the day I'm going to do 10,000 steps. So I've got my Apple Watch, and I just end up, the time goes so quick. I usually get about 45 minutes to an hour in, which I would never normally make time to do. But because I'm getting my work calls in, it's kind of ties in that it's fine. And then I actually get more creative ideas while I'm walking, like when they're chatting with people, and I don't know, the flow just comes because and it's not a stressful walk. It's not like up hills or anything, but it's just keeping my body moving. I found it's been really good for my well-being as well. So looking at your routine, and if it's a work from home day, maybe going, all right, after I drop the kids to school, can I go for a walk then? Or at lunchtime, I'm going to purposely go for a walk outside, because otherwise you just get stuck inside all day long, and it's a drag. So looking at
it is.
where you can put it in your routine, that's not going to be like, I have to get to a gym class on a Tuesday at this time. And then it's so easy just to go, it's too hard, I'm not going to go. But if it's something you're already doing, like taking your kid to sport, or while they're doing their football training or soccer training, you go go for a walk too. Like I think because my daughter's doing professional gymnastics now, and so she does.
She's amazing. She's absolute superstar.
She's just nailed it, got a gold for her state trials on the weekend. So we're very proud of her. And she's only 7, but she is training 12 hours a week, and she puts us all of our fitness to shame, because how a 7-year-old can do that is incredible. But each time she trains, I'm like, no, I must do an hour of something, like whether it's going to a gym class or it's going for a walk. I feel like I need to do something. And so she does Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, right? So now I've found I'm really enjoying outdoor walks. So on last Saturday, I actually called a friend who lives near Bondi Beach, and I drove over to see her after I dropped Emma to gym. And we walked for an hour and a half up the coastal beach walk. And it was just the best thing to do to start your weekend. I was like, I can't believe I haven't thought to do this. So I think each Saturday now I'm going to go over there and do a walk at 8:30 in the morning and just get that walk in for the day. And just kind of make it me time, rather than feeling like, I'm waiting around for her for hours.
Absolutely. And look, it's not, it's not the first time that, I think the days that I'm working from home, I know for me, like I mean, I'm the same, Kate. I've got, like I've told you, I've got 3 kids, even though one's, one's coming up to be 18 in a matter of days.
Wow.
I know. So, there's lots of times where, he is out doing soccer training. So he's very similar. He does soccer training, he does matching, all of that kind of thing. My girls, love for me to pick them up on certain days of the week from school and all of that sort of thing. So, my drive in the car, for example, to go and pick my girls up from school is, time where I'll catch up on phone calls. And then when I get to the school, I'll always get there generally about 15 minutes early, and I'll actually get out of my car and I'm exactly the same. And I'm on my phone. I'll be returning phone calls, and I will literally be walking around the car park at the school, doing those kinds of laps, because it's, and I think the thing we need to stop making these sorts of things so overcomplicated. You don't have to go and join a gym, or you don't have to go and, sign up to this or sign up to that. You've got everything right at your disposal. I think it's more about prioritizing and being creative about how you do it. I'm on a board, I'm on a board of management at the moment with another organisation, and the amount of times where I've had to stay home, I haven't been able to physically be there because I've got the kids. But what I will do then is, if I'm cooking dinner for them, is I'll actually be on the Zoom call on my phone with my pods in, and I'm cooking dinner for the kids at the same time, because it's productive for me. So I'm on my feet. I'm not sat in front of the computer. I'm out of my home office. It's about being creative with how we do these things, right? Like, we start to
work smarter. Yeah.
Harder, not harder. And, and then we start to actually, and that's where we've gotten ourselves to a stage where, we've normalized the way that we conduct business now. We've normalized, doing Zoom calls. We've normalized, doing Teams calls in the middle of a cafe somewhere or something like that. Everyone does it. Like, it's just the norm. So
I know, and it's so good now that we can have kids in the background, and it's not like people won't get too upset. Like, I'll never forget in COVID lockdown, I had a client, a CEO of an organization in Northern Territory, and my daughter, they didn't have the lockdown that we had in like Vic and New South Wales, but we had like 4 months of lockdown, I remember, in 2021. And this time 2 years ago, it keeps popping up on my Facebook feed. Like, this time 2 years ago, I'm like, please don't remind me of 2 years ago.
I know. Do you really want to remember that? Like, seriously, what a marker in time, right?
I know, but it was like, wow, we did that for 14 weeks. We homeschooled our child while working and running our business. And I remember the CEO being annoyed that my daughter popped in the background and thought it was so unprofessional because we were interviewing for this GM role. And I remember going, I was a bit put off because I was a bit shocked that he was so like that. And then it made me realize, I'm like, they don't get it. Like, they don't get what we're working with here. And the fact that I can't actually physically send her to school, like, we're not allowed. Like, I just remember thinking, wow. And then to see now where it's like socially acceptable to, instead of having a lunch break, just jumping out at 3 to pick up your kid and come back and log back in, like, is now become okay. And, being that kind of work from home, so that on the days that I have to take her to gymnastics, I'm available and I can get that commute time in that I'd be going to the office. I can spend that time working. Absolutely. It's about being smarter, right, with your time and making it work for you. And it's about that. I was talking to someone about the other day. It's not about having set clock off and clock off time on and off time for me. It's more around integration. So for me, it's about having the flexibility in my week so that I can take my daughter to gymnastics and or swimming and not feel like, it's interrupting the day. But then I don't mind logging in at night every now and again to catch up on things, or on a Saturday morning while my daughter's at gym anyway, sitting there catching up and planning for the week for a few hours while I'm on my own. I may as well. And for me, I don't resent that. I don't get annoyed by that. But for me, it makes me happy because I can balance it all and have that integration that works for me and my routine. But a lot of people like the whole have that cutoff time. And, I'm really conscious about 6 to 8 p.m. trying to be present for my child. And then after that, I can log in and do what I need to do, right? And I think that's is getting that balance right that works for you and your family.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
important.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think it's great that, there's so many more employers nowadays and, business entrepreneurs and leaders who have embraced the change that, we have gone through as an organization. And, look, I know with, Youth InSearch, where I am at the moment, for example, we're very much the same. We
remote working. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we literally are. We're all remote.
Are.
Pretty much most of us are. Certainly in Victoria, we are. We don't have a fixed office somewhere. We work virtually, and we work out in community. So we're embedded in locations and support. So, because at the end of the day, life doesn't run between 9 to 5. It doesn't. Life's not going to stop between 9 and 5 for things to happen. I know. The amount of it's just like, if school calls or, if someone calls and someone's had an accident or something's happened, there's been a family emergency, you've got to go and do it. That's just life. It doesn't stop just because, we're parents or families or, leaders or entrepreneurs or anything like that. It doesn't stop. So I think we need to, get sort of rid of this whole, thought process that remote workers are unproductive workers, because that's generally not the case.
No.
That's certainly something which needs to be, kind of eradicated in the thought process, I think, nowadays.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's so important to juggle that balance now. And I guess society's definitely changed in that whole the remote workforce. I'm actually setting up some remote staff at the moment for Taylor Care, and that's been a real interesting shift for me as a leader and a business owner to go, oh, you're not going to be in the office with me physically every day, and how does that going to look, and how do I support you differently? It's definitely the new normal, I guess. And is there some tips that you've kind of found have worked for you with managing remote teams? What would be your, because that just came to me that you would probably be doing this all the time. So how do you, what tips have you got to kind of help them feel supported without kind of micromanaging them, so to speak?
And that's the thing. That's the big thing, right? You've hit it there, because it's, the difference between, remote managing a team remotely and micromanaging. There's a bit of a fine line, right? Because you can come across as though you're micromanaging. But I think it's setting the tone for accountability, that, the staff, have their routine. They know what they need to do. Okay. All of the staff know what they need to do each and every day that they come in. Now, if those things are being met each and every day, then they're being productive with their time. You don't need to micromanaging them. But, like, for example, simple things like, I created a Teams chat for us, and every morning I'll check in with the team and I'll say good morning to the guys. The guys will say good morning to me. I'll hear and check in with them, by phone once a day and say, hey, are you going okay? Is everything all right? Do you need anything from me? Is there anything you need from me? What can I do to help support you through your day? But I think it's really making them feel, because to a degree, the trust is only there to be broken, right, in that situation. So I think if the staff are, and individuals are understanding at the get-go of what your expectations are, and you're not there to micromanaging them, but you are there to support them, then that's when you're going to get the best from them. Having that level of micromanaging is actually going to eradicate most forms of productivity that you're going to see from staff, because that's when you start to see staff will, go AWOL, their to-do lists will blow out of the water. You won't see them online, so you'll see them have been inactive, because they begin to naturally hibernate and procrastinate, because they've got that fear of showing up. So they've got that fear of retribution. So if you're able to show that support, but take away that feeling like people are being managed, micromanaged, then you're actually starting to make them feel empowered. So they start to actually take more accountability, and they'll actually take more on. So it's actually showing that we trust them, that, you've got trust in them to do what they need to do. And not able to commit to what it is that they need to do, then all they need to do is check in with you. You know, same goes for me with, you know, with my manager. You know, it's nothing for me to sort of, you know, get on the phone to him and sort of say, hey, listen, this has come up, you know, this has happened. I need some, you know, some support or some help with this. Or do you know what? Have you got time for a chat? No problems. So it's just finding out what communication strategy works for each individual, because everyone's completely different.
Yeah, I've been trying a few different things, like because obviously some English second language, some of them, because they're overseas. So I've been trying to think of different creative ways to communicate with them, because I was worried that maybe my accent or something is hard for them to, and I speak fast, maybe they're missing points or something. So I started like following up with emails with just like explaining. It takes a bit more time, but I found that at least it's clear what I'm trying to say, so they can digest it in their own way. The other idea is I found that if they're a bit quiet as well, doing a one-on-one tends to get them to open up a bit more. I've been finding in a group setting, they're not going to talk unless they're asked. But if you kind of get them one-on-one, then they go, oh, I can talk to you now. So I'm going to be bringing that back in, because I think when we're in the office, we'd see each other a lot. So now that we're remote, some of us, I'm going to start bringing in the one-on-one weeklies instead of monthly, because I think it's probably going to help me connect with them a bit more and see where they're at.
Without a doubt. You know, and, you know, we've got, for example, you know, when I started up with my guys is that, you know, we've got a OneNote, you know, message and communication book, you know, which is online. So we've all got access to it in the team, and we can just drop notes into it, you know. So we can drop a note into it or a message for one of us, and we can tag the person in it. So they'll get notification, but it's there, so they know what they need to do. You know, and again, as long as all of that sort of, all of those communication channels are being recognized and supported, then, you know, we've got so much technology nowadays that there's really not much that we can't do remotely. Let's face it.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? How we can recruit like all over Australia and not ever meet people and still be able to get our job done. I remember when I first started recruiting this way, clients were like, what if the connect's not who they say they are? And I'm like, well, at the end of the day, you're meeting them, not me. So as long as you're happy, like, that's what matters. Like, doesn't matter if I've met them. If anything, I think it saves a lot of unconscious bias that a recruiter could bring by meeting someone face to face. I think sometimes, I mean, Teams is great as our backup option, but you know, I think it's important, like, just having that kind of raw chat on the phone and screening them actually gets a lot out of them, and you listen to their tones of voice, the way they say things, the way, I don't know, I just pick up different cues from people when it's verbal, not just visual. So it's interesting, isn't it? Oh, well, thanks so much for this chat. It's been so good. And to finish off, I'd love to know what's your favorite quote that you think brings grit and grace in leadership or life.
Oh, my favorite quote. You know what? There's lots of quotes, really, to be honest with you. But, you know, I think that probably the biggest one for me is that you don't know what you don't know. And there's nothing wrong with that. So, you know, it's so incredibly simple to go, you know what, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know how to do that. That's okay, because you don't need to know everything, and you're not going to know everything, because everything changes so dramatically.
So much.
But, you know, in leadership, I think, you know, one of the biggest kind of, and I've actually got it, you know, stuck up on my wall, is that, you know, the struggle is seasonal, but the lessons are always lifelong.
Oh, wow. I love that. Yeah. That's so good. That sums it up beautifully.
It does, doesn't it? So, you know, whether you're in leadership, whether you're, you know, field staff, whatever job you're doing, whatever it is, you know, even just in life in general, you know, everyone goes through so many struggles, you know, from day to day, you know, whether it be health, whether it be family, whether it be personally, you know, whether it be professionally and you're struggling in your role. That's not going to last forever. But whatever you take from that situation is ultimately what's going to help you move past it.
Yeah, I love that. No, that's awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And how could people get in touch with you if they'd like to connect with you?
Connect with me. Well, I'm on Facebook under my full name. I'm on LinkedIn as well. If people would like to reach out to me on my podcast page, it's on Anchor FM, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. So they can find me under SocieteQueen_X, and I'm also on Instagram and TikTok as well under both the same name. So you can always drop me a DM if need to.
Thank you. That's awesome. Thanks for your time today. Loved our chat.
Thanks so much.
Telling me to dance, taking a chance. Telling me to dance, taking a chance.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. I know it was a bit of a longer one, but I felt like there was so many pearls of wisdom and just so much about grit and grace in life and leadership and how we juggle it all as working women and mums and business people. So hopefully that was helpful to you. If you could please like and share with us, that would help us so much. And we appreciate you tuning in and look forward to seeing you next week.